In the realm of true crime, there are rare moments when justice takes on an unexpected twist, leaving us astounded and questioning the complexities of fate. Such is the case with the notorious killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. On the morning of November the 28th, 1994, inside the walls of the Columbia Correctional Institute in Portage, Wisconsin, a violent chapter of American crime reached its climax. Christopher Scarver, an inmate serving a life sentence for murder, walked a path intertwined with destiny as he crossed paths with Jeffrey Dahmer. This encounter would ultimately lead to a horrifying end for the man who had terrorized Milwaukee and captured the world's morbid fascination. A haunting tale that has captivated audiences for years. Jeffrey Dahmer's chilling narrative resurfaces once again, this time in Ryan Murphy's gripping true crime series, Dahmer Monster, The Jeffrey Dahmer Story, exclusively on Netflix. This captivating production delves beyond the mere retelling of Dahmer's heinous crimes, shedding light on the courageous efforts of neighbors and witnesses who attempted to halt his murderous rampage. The Milwaukee police's disturbingly blind eye to Dahmer's atrocities, while the state of Wisconsin had already abolished the death penalty by the time of his trial. With the seemingly inevitable fate of spending his remaining years in solitary confinement, Dahmer's 15 consecutive life sentences became a haunting symbol of his impending doom within the prison walls. In the mere span of 2 years and 2 attempts, Christopher Scarver became the instrument of fate, delivering the final blow that ended the life of a man whose name still sends shivers down our spines. Jeffrey Dahmer, the embodiment of evil, left a trail of horror in his wake. By the time of his arrest in 1991, he'd callously claimed the lives of at least 17 individuals, predominantly young gay men of color. His unimaginable acts of decapitation, cannibalism, and sadistic torture ensured his place amongst the most abhorrent monsters in history. For many, the passing of Dahmer brought a conflicted sense of relief, blurring the boundaries of even the strictest moral code. When confronted with the knowledge that he had drilled a hole into the skull of a 14-year-old victim, filling it with acid, it becomes difficult to resist the overwhelming sense of vindication. But what happened to Christopher Scarver? Born in Milwaukee in 1969, Scarver's journey took a dark turn when he found himself behind bars for the vicious slaying of Steve Lohman, a worker in a training program back in the 1990s. A high school dropout, Scarver had aspirations of a brighter future as a carpenter, having undergone training at the Wisconsin Conservation Corps work program. With the completion of the program, he had been promised a full-time job by his superior, Edward Patz. However, as the promised employment failed to materialize and Patz was terminated, Scarver's anger grew. Fueling his frustration was Scarver's heavy consumption of marijuana and alcohol, which had consumed him for years. Moreover, an inner voice began to motivate him, proclaiming him the chosen one. On that fateful day, June 1st, 1990, Scarver returned to the Corps Center to confront Patz, but instead encountered 27-year-old Steve Lohman, Patz's replacement and site manager John. In a moment of rage and desperation, Scarver held Lohman at gunpoint, demanding money. Discontented with a meager $15, he callously shot Lohman in the head, but Scarver's thirst for violence would not be quenched as he fired 2 more shots. In an unexpected twist, John, desperate to appease Scarver, handed him $3,000 and his credit card, imploring him to disappear. This sinister encounter marked the beginning of a dark path for Scarver, leading us to question the depths of his psyche and the chilling fate that awaited him. Swift justice prevailed as Scarver was swiftly arrested. His arrest marked the beginning of the end as he faced conviction for the merciless slaying of Lohman, ultimately receiving a life sentence. Contemplating the magnitude of his actions, Scarver acknowledged his wrongdoing, yet remained unsure as to what had driven him to such a breaking point. In 1992, the doors of Columbia Correctional Institution swung open to receive Scarver, locking away a man haunted by his past transgressions. At the time of the crime, Scarver had recently found out he would become a father and had been kicked out of his home by his mother. On November the 28th, 1994, Scarver, a 25-year-old inmate, found himself in an unexpected situation. Assigned to a work detail with 2 fellow prisoners, they were left unattended by the guards as they worked on the task of cleaning a restroom in the prison gymnasium.
When I was young, I didn't know what it meant, obviously, but, that name, it's been around me for...
That you heard the name Jeffrey Dahmer?
Heard it a lot growing up. That's all I heard.
Little did anyone anticipate that this seemingly ordinary chore would unleash a chilling chain of events. Scarver, in a chilling interview, revealed the gruesome details of Dahmer's demise, explaining how he ended the life of the infamous serial killer. Scarver recounted how most of Dahmer's victims were people of color, primarily black or Hispanic. Interestingly, Anderson, another inmate, had initially misled the police by falsely implicating 2 black men as the culprits of Dahmer's crimes. While some speculate that this racial element fueled Scarver's actions, detectives officially did not consider the slaying racially motivated. Scarver went on to describe how Dahmer had crossed the line. Not only were his victims subjected to unimaginable horrors, but Dahmer's disturbing behavior extended to his interactions with fellow inmates and prison staff. Unlike those who demonstrated remorse during their time behind bars, Dahmer remained devoid of any remorse. The cannibalistic killer utilized ketchup packets to mimic the appearance of blood and sculpt prison food into grotesque imitations of body parts. These grotesque acts served to heighten his infamous persona as the Milwaukee cannibal, sending shivers down the spines of those unfortunate enough to be in his presence. This unsettling revelation was seemingly supported by Madison pastor Roy Ratcliffe, who claimed that prison guards had informed him of Dahmer's eerie jokes, such as saying, "I bite," and having a Cannibals Anonymous meeting poster displayed in his cell. In a twist of events, Gerald Boyle, who had defended Jeffrey Dahmer during his trial, strongly refuted his claim that Dahmer engaged in taunting behavior. Boyle firmly stated that taunting was not Dahmer's style and that he never witnessed any evidence suggesting he would mimic the acts he committed. Boyle believed Dahmer to be a mild-mannered individual who would never engage in such actions. Surprisingly, Christopher Scarver, the man who killed Dahmer, had no direct interaction with him before the slaying. Scarver purposefully kept his distance from the infamous serial killer, aware that Dahmer was a target for other inmates. In the last months of his life, Dahmer required constant supervision from guards to ensure his safety. Adding a surprising twist to the story, Dahmer underwent a religious transformation in his final months. His newfound faith led to his baptism, a significant event that took place only a few months before his death. Upon his arrest for the double slaying, Christopher Scarver initially entered a plea of insanity, citing his troubled mental health history. Following the murder of his first victim, Loman, Scarver proclaimed himself the Chosen One, asserting that he received instructions from various voices. However, during the trial for the slayings of Dahmer and Anderson, Scarver was declared mentally fit to stand trial. Subsequently, he altered his plea to no contest, striking a deal that would result in his transfer to federal prison. Scarver remains confined at the Centennial Correctional Facility in Colorado. He's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, rendering his behavior potentially hazardous to both himself and others. Despite his confinement, he clings to his unwavering religious beliefs, channeling his deepest emotions through poetry. Unbelievably, Scarver has even ventured into the realm of literature, releasing his very own captivating books titled Godseed and The Child Left Behind. In the year 2005, a courageous individual took a stand for his civil rights and initiated a significant legal battle against the notorious Wisconsin Secure Program Facility, also known as the Supermax Prison. Fueled by a deep conviction that his constitutional rights should not be trampled upon, he filed a lawsuit accusing the facility of violating his basic human rights to be free from cruel and unusual punishment. His heart-wrenching account detailed over a decade spent in solitary confinement, an excruciating, isolating experience that left an indelible mark on his psyche. The conditions within those prison walls were nothing short of harrowing. The cells were devoid of any windows, sealing the inmates in a claustrophobic abyss. As the summer heat soared, temperatures inside the cells reached a scorching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For those like him who relied on antipsychotic medications, the risk to succumbing to heat stroke intensified, exacerbating their already unbearable suffering. After enduring 3 long years in such a nightmarish environment, he implored the authorities to transfer him to a more tolerable location. The gravity of his plea did not go unnoticed, as a district court meticulously examined the conditions prevailing at the Supermax prison. Their determination was resolute. The severity and restrictiveness of the conditions imposed on mentally ill inmates was so extreme that they exhausted the very symptoms displayed by these individuals. However, it was argued that Christopher Scarver's placement in the Supermax prison was not an intentional effort to cause him undue stress or exacerbate his mental illness. Supporters maintained that certain measures, such as keeping his room constantly illuminated, were implemented for his safety due to previous instances of self-harm. Similarly, the removal of items from his room was justified as a precautionary measure to prevent potential injuries. Despite the support of fellow inmates and a subsequent appeal, his complaint was ultimately dismissed in 2006. In 2012, Scarver made an intriguing attempt to publish a tell-all memoir about his slaying of Dahmer. The project received partial funding from the Creative Corrections Education Foundation, an organization established to support students with imprisoned parents. Surprisingly, Scarver reconnected with his son during this time, and the two maintained a meaningful correspondence, exchanging thoughts and experiences through their letters. And so the curtain falls on this horrific tale. Christopher Scarver, burdened by his inner demons, delivered the final act in the twisted saga of Jeffrey Dahmer. In the shadows of those prison walls, Scarver assumed the role of a silent avenger, forever etching his name into the stories of justice. The echoes of Dahmer's heinous crimes will forever echo within Scarver's conscience, reminding him of the blurred lines between righteousness and darkness. Scarver's act of finality may have brought closure to the families of his victims, but it has left a mark on his soul. The tale of Jeffrey Dahmer's demise will forever be intertwined with the name of Christopher Scarver, a man caught in the clutches of an unforgiving destiny.